Welcome back to Global Eye. Thanks for staying with us. Let's convene the summit now. Our panelists all lined up. Nick Kolohin, a journalist, joining us now. Alexander Pevsner, a lecturer on China at the Lauder School of Government Diplomacy and Strategy, and Tommy Steiner, policy director at Signal. Thank you all so much for being with us. Our main topic today, Chinese President Xi Jinping wrapping up his visit in Moscow. We're going to talk about how close that relationship is and what it means for the West. Take a look.
Russian President Vladimir Putin rolled out a seemingly endless red carpet for his dear friend Xi Jinping during the Chinese leader's three-day trip to Moscow. In a rare move, the Russian president even escorted Xi to his car following the 4-hour talks and lavish dinner. But did Putin's charm offensive pay off? The visit came at a time of growing Russian isolation and just days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for the Russian leader over alleged war crimes in Ukraine. The ongoing war was barely mentioned by the leaders. Instead, Xi and Putin used the stage to affirm their alignment on a host of issues, including their distrust of the US. But their readout following the meeting stated that while the two countries share a close partnership, it does not mean a military political alliance. Putin endorsed the yuan as Russia's foreign currency of choice, and at the end of it all, got an invite to visit China later this year, painted by Russian state TV as proof of unwavering friendship. But how close is the relationship in reality? Should the West be wary of Russia becoming China's new vessel? Are we facing a new Cold War or leftovers from the last one? Should the West be worried about a potential China-Russia military alliance?
All right, so let's get right into it. Should the West be worried about a possible Russia-China military alliance? Let's bring in our panel, Nick Kolohin, Alexander Pevsner, and Tommy Steiner. Nick, we'll start with you. You know the rules, 30 seconds. Go ahead.
The West, of course, should be really worried about this partnership because this is the beginning of forming coalitions that could become a military alliance, and those powers could collide and it could start a third world war if somebody reasonable in the world, some of the world leaders, would not stop it now, because this is the last chance.
Alexander, same question. Your thoughts?
Sure. Well, we have seen a certain caution on the part of China defining the relationship with Russia. They repeated the definition of non-confrontation, no conflict, and not targeted at the third party. But on the other hand, the formula of boundless, limitless friendship that surfaced for the first time in 2022 is gone from this year's statement. So you can see China is hedging its bets.
And Tommy, finally, should the West be worried about this possible alliance?
First of all, it's not going to be an alliance. China does not get into military alliances. At least it never has, and it's unlikely to do so. But this is a partnership, very close one. Should the West be worried about it? It is worried about it, but it also reflects a lot of concern, if not fear, on the Russian and on the Chinese side as well. It's not a one-sided story here.
All right, gentlemen, let's open up the discussion. Nick, I want to go back to you. Experts are saying that China and Russia are trying to instill a new world order against countries like the United States. Can the U.S. and their allies in the West really even do anything about it?
After USSR fell apart in the beginning of the 90s, Russia wanted to be part of this Western world, and also China wanted for many decades to be part of this world. But the West as long as I understand it, they just want to grab more money, more power, and they want a geopolitical gain, and then they want to be the only hegemony power in the world. So because of that, it left no chance, no other way for China or Russia to act. This is their only chance. If they want to be some kind of world powers, they need to stay against the West in this new world.
Alexander, how do you respond to that? That if they must stand up to the rest of the world, should they want to be a world power stronger than the United States?
I think it would be a real challenge to prize China and Russia apart. If there ever was a moment like that, which I doubt, it is long, long gone. It's not a formal alliance, by the way. There is no formal alliance between Russia and China, but certainly the ties are very close. It is rooted both in practical, realist considerations, but also in ideology. I think there is a genuine ideological affinity between Russia and China, even though there are also serious differences in their approach to the world. Obviously, China is a more careful, cautious actor with an eye to Europe and to the global south. But definitely they need each other, for sure.
Tommy, just how badly do they need each other?
Well, arguably, Russia needs China more than China needs Russia. There's no doubt here. And what we see here is a shift from what was once a partnership in which Russia or the Soviet Union was the senior partner and China was the more junior one. Now the roles have reversed, and China is the leading power. There's no doubt about it. And yes, and Russia needs China now more than ever. But there's one thing that has to be said here. And I listened to Nick's record of what happened over the past since the end of the Cold War. When it comes to China, at least, the West went out of its way, and to some extent, some in the West still do, in trying to engage China. And even the more dovish Democrats in the United States, and even the more left-wing oriented in Europe, have come to the conclusion that the engagement with China did not work. And at the end of the day, they are concerned about Chinese activities, Chinese actions, Chinese plans and ambitions. And the response we see today is actually a response coming to what was to aggressive, assertive Chinese actions, statements, policies over the past decade.
Well, Nick, would you agree with that China needs Russia more than Russia needs China?
I think they both need each other, and both of them couldn't be alone in this new world, because Russia has the military power and China has the economic power, and they complete each other with this. Also, Russia has all the supplies that China may need to remain the powerhouse of the world, like gas, oil, and other materials, raw materials. And Russia needs Chinese products because in some parts of technology, Russia really advanced it good, but at other parts of technology, it relied on the West, and now it should rely on China, because it will take them many years to develop their own technologies. So yeah, they need each other.
Let's shift to the economy now. Alexander, Vladimir Putin says that Moscow is ready to support Chinese business, especially after a lot of Western businesses left Russia post-invasion of Ukraine. What kind of economic influence could China have if they were to go into Russia and replace all of the Western enterprise that left?
China is already deeply involved in Russia. I mean, Chinese companies have been quick off the mark to take the place of Western firms that have left Russia after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I want to highlight one thing. I mean, I agree with Tommy that there is an imbalance of power, and certainly China is the senior partner. I think Russia is not without leverage, and one point is exactly economic. I mean, we're talking about 3 years of COVID policy that devastated the Chinese economy. The Chinese are very happy to get this opportunity from Russia. And in fact, while most of the attention was naturally on Ukraine and their, sort of standoff with the West, the two sides actually emphasized the economy greatly in their statements. Putin gave a long talk about how China will provide, how Russia will provide China with food and all others economic benefits. So it's not just about grandstanding or showing off to the U.S. There's a real economic benefit, and we've seen that bilateral trade rose more than 30% last year to a record almost 190 billion, which is impressive.
Well, as we said, China and Russia are trying to create a new world order, trying to dominate the world's economy. So are we facing potentially a new Cold War, or perhaps leftovers of another one? What do you think, Tommy?
Well, there is a problem with using the metaphor of the Cold War. There is a great power rivalry. Likening it to the Cold War is problematic because it's rather different. Because unlike the Cold War, where there was an iron curtain that descended upon between the West and East, here the two great powers are deeply interconnected even to this day, and therefore it's a different story. We're living in a different world, also in terms of the technologies involved. So likening it to the Cold War is a bit superficial. There's a rivalry. It is going to be a feature that will be with us for quite some time. I don't want to talk about, midterm, long term. I'm Israeli at the end of the day. For us, long term is tomorrow morning. But in terms of Cold War relations or great power rivalries, we're in for a rivalry that can last at least a decade. Of course, things can happen in the meantime, but at the end of the day, this seems to be a long-term feature, a rivalry.
Nick, tell us your thoughts in about 30 seconds here. What do you think about the potential of a new Cold War?
I think we have a good potential for this war, nuclear war, unfortunately, because China and Russia, they wouldn't withstand all the NATO power without using nuclear weapons. It's impossible for them. So unfortunately, it will be the only solution for them to use those nuclear powers. But let's hope that the West will not go all the way with its war in Ukraine, that of course Russia invaded Ukraine, as they say, in unprovoked war. But I think it was a bit of provoked, let's say like this. So both sides need now to sit down and have a peace agreement before it will be too late.
In what way was this provoked? In what way was this war provoked? I just don't understand. What did Ukraine do?
Gentlemen, we've got to take a short break now. We're going to dive right back into it right after this break. Back in 2 minutes.